Healthcare in Roatan Honduras. I get lots of questions about healthcare, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the general healthcare, the state of healthcare, and there from an American's opinion, and there's also a little bit about my healthcare journey, where you can see actually I have 11 inches of scars on my face, which you can't really, actually you can kind of see that today. But it actually goes all the way up to here and down and around. And then I also have another one right here. And I'm very grateful to Roatan Honduras for the diagnostic. So in Roatan Honduras, I would say there's lots of urgent care style medical facilities, either in West Bay, West End, or over on the east side, especially the French Harbor area. So you get a lot of like basics. So if, you've got cuts, scrapes, bangs, those type things, sore throat, burst eardrum, stuff like that, basic. I would say the healthcare is very, very good, or anything. And it's easy and accessible, which is wonderful. I'm not sure how much it costs. It used to cost 500 limps. I think it's probably doubled since I have been there for an issue. Luckily, I haven't been there for an issue in quite some time. So, and then I would say if you need a little bit more healthcare, like my husband once stabbed himself fell on a fence and impaled himself. So we had to go see a surgeon in Woods Clinic in Coxon Hole, which is the private hospital on the west side of the island. And we got to see a wonderful surgeon who was able to stitch Daniel back up, did a good bit, I would say a very thorough job. And not only was able to stitch him up and be like, well, and we were preparing for surgery because they were assuming he tore muscle. It was only fat, thank goodness. But anyway, long story short, they also, when they did the ultrasound and some of the diagnostic, they saw that it was just fat. So they sewed him up. And then they also saw that he had kidney stones. So an issue he didn't even know he had, he got fixed right there. I think that total bill was under $200. So I'm a big fan of Woods Clinic in Coxon Hole. I think it's great. And that's where I know a lot of people have had their children. And then you also have a newer hospital called Samesa that is in French Harbor. And that is where I would say the nicer equipment is. And the only negative I have about that is some things to do with the insurance and billing. So welcome to the United States of America in French Harbor, because that's kind of the same story we have. Or I can tell you about the $300,000 in medical bills that I had after these 2 surgeries, and my insurance didn't want to pay for it. But that's a whole nother story. So anyway, I think there's good medical options. It depends. The basics are good, or if you stab yourself, it's good. But I would say if you need a specialist, or if there is a massive issue, there's also medevac, and you could either be medevac to the mainland. Costa Rica's popular, Panama, but I think Costa Rica tends to be more prevalent just because it's easier to get to. And then also Miami, if you do need to be medevaced to a specialist. So I've visited Woods Clinic a few times actually, and that's my son also slipped and broke open his lip, or bit off his lip almost. It was still kind of connected. Dr. David also at Wood Clinic sewed him right back up, and his lip it doesn't look like a plastic surgeon did it, but you know what? His lip's there. There's still blood flow. It works great for me. I'm very happy with it. My children, so they are 5 and 7 now. I did have them. They were born in the United States of America, mostly for their passport. And then they've been seeing pediatricians in Honduras most of the time. And all of their vaccines, almost all of their vaccines were done in Honduras versus the United States. And we went to Miss Peggy's in Sandy Bay. It's really, I think that's one of the best places for kids, or AKR, Anthony's Key Resort. That's where I've typically gone if it's not like a major issue. It's just like, my ear hurts, or I've got a sinus infection, or something where I'm like, I just need antibiotics, or I need like something simple, or anything dive related. AKR is the way to go. That's also in Sandy Bay. So I've had a great time there, and that's where my children go if I need like a pediatrician note for school that's saying that they can go to school, or you know, anytime you need something like that, AKR or Miss Peggy's is where I go for my children. For me, my story with Roatan Honduras, so I had both my children in the United States. And so I was either pregnant or breastfeeding from 2014 through 2018. Sorry if that's too much information, but we're talking about healthcare, and I can only speak to my story, so I'm just going to speak to my story. So in the United States, so I have something called expat insurance. I don't mean to trigger anyone with expat versus immigrant. It's just what the darn thing's called. So I can get like major health care in the United States, but like the basic stuff is here. So in the US, after I had given birth to my children, I was kind of in this 4-year kind of postpartum is what it was called. And I kept going to doctors saying there's something wrong. There's something not right. Like, you know, I think there's something wrong, but I didn't know what it was. I had 3 lumps on my neck here. And then I also had a lump behind my ear. And I was pretty sure it was my thyroid and a lymph node. And in the US, they're like, you know, it's just postpartum, and no one would take me seriously. And they also said insurance wasn't going to cover any of it because they thought it was postpartum. So offered to do antibiotics to get the swelling to go down, because that's all it was. Well, that was not accurate. So I went down to Roatan kind of frustrated, and I saw the same surgeon, Dr. David Williams, who works at the public hospital, and also Woods Clinic in Cox and Hull, that private hospital. And I went to him and I'm like, something's not right. I don't know what it is. And he was the first doctor I had spoken to in 4 years that said, no one knows your body better than you. And I was just like, holy shnikes, you're the first doctor that basically didn't say I was postpartum crazy. So that was wonderful. And I was like, I don't know what it is. I said, but like something's wrong. So he felt my neck. You can see the scars. So he felt my neck and he's like, oh, I see 3 nodules. And I was like, also, you know, behind my ear, which you can see. Well, you can actually see the scar pretty well. I have 11 inches of scars. It goes behind my ear. I don't know if you can see that. And then it goes all the way up here too, but it's a facelift scar on the front of my face. So I did have plastic surgeons do that. So I'm jumping ahead. I did go to the US for that surgery, but going back to the diagnostics in Roatan, I ended up going to La Ceiba and getting an ultrasound. The ultrasound didn't have the clarity that they needed in Roatan. So I went to La Ceiba, which is just a little ferry ride over, or a plane ride. And then they found that 3 nodules had calcification, which was not ideal. And then here they didn't do, I actually don't remember if they did a ultrasound here or not, but ended up, so the results went back to Dr. David and he's like, let me show you this amazing doctor that we have in San Pedro. So I flew to San Pedro by myself as a female, just for what that's worth. And I saw this amazing doctor in San Pedro where she did a CT scan with contrast and also did biopsies on the thyroid, and then what we thought was a lymph node, or I think everyone thought it was a lymph node. They just assumed it was the spreading of the thyroid, the thyroid cancer. So I did 2 biopsies, or actually 4 biopsies, but on each nodule, and then the little ball, the little pea, that was behind my ear. And I was able to get into that doctor, that specialist, within a week, which is, well, absolutely amazing. I wouldn't say it was, you know, it would have been a better situation if I could have been given drugs, but I was in San Pedro by myself, driving myself, and so I was like, let's do this sober. But if I had drugs, it would have been a lot better. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, results come back within a couple days, and I have not 1, but I have 2 cancers. So I have thyroid cancer, and then I have a pleomorphic adenoma, which is a salivary gland cancer. So I finally figured it out. Now, I didn't want to know that I had cancer, and then I had 2 cancers, but I was finally diagnosed, and it took the doctors in Roatan that could function outside of the limits of insurance when they tell you what you can and cannot do. Now, I chose to do the surgeries in the US. I went to a thyroid specialist in Tampa, which both of my tumors happened to be wrapped around nerves. So I have a severed or a broken vocal nerve, so I was told I'll never speak again. Obviously, that did not occur. And then this little guy, I had to go, or I had the opportunity to go to MD Anderson because to my knowledge at the time, they had only done 3 surgeries at that, because I guess it was in like the very tip of the salivary gland, which is rare. Normally it's not there. And that's why I guess, I don't know, no one believed that it was there. So I went to MD Anderson in Houston and had that done. And that's where I had that plastic surgery scar. So even though I have 11 inches of scars on my face, you really don't see them until I point them out. So I'm very grateful for Roatan healthcare compared to the US, because I felt like I was not being heard in the United States when I was in this like pregnancy postpartum zone. No one wanted to treat me. And I don't know if it was me, if I was coming off, I don't know, but I can tell you the doctors, every doctor I've spoken to in Roatan Honduras has actually listened to the words that I say and not just and they're able to think. And they, instead of just being like, oh, if I say this, I'm going to get sued. And it's just, I don't know. I love American. Well, no, I'm not even going to say that. I'm very grateful for access to the specialist in the United States of America. I do think our system's broken. And I do think doctors they're tied in so many different directions, if it's insurance or liability. So it's really nice being able to go somewhere and talk to a doctor and just say, hey, this is what's going on. It doesn't feel right. Can you help me? And I was able to have that conversation in Roatan, Honduras. So I'm not saying if you have other chronic issues, I can't really speak to that. I do know some people that have done dialysis, but they do go to the mainland for it. So I can just speak for myself, and I've been very happy with it, but I haven't, that's just my story. So is it perfect? No, but hey, my cancers hadn't spread to any other parts of my body or that I know of. So thanks, guys.